Hey guys, Botting25 here watching SpaceX's return to flight after the explosion in September. Yeah, sorry about that. This is Iridium-1. And there's the date. It's Vandenberg Air Force Base.
Oh,
there's going to be a second
live view of the Falcon 9 rocket carrying 10 Iridium Next satellites, preparing for liftoff in just about 20 minutes from now. My name is Tom Proderio, and welcome to the live webcast of today's Falcon 9 launch from SpaceX's West Coast launch pad at Vandenberg Air Force Base, California. Today's launch not only marks our return to flight following our September 1st mishap last year, but it also represents the first of 7 launches we're performing for Iridium to carry their next constellation of communication satellites into orbit. This will also be the first flight from Vandenberg Air Force Base since our launch of the Jason 3 satellite into orbit last year. And finally, the Falcon 9 first stage will be returning to our autonomous spaceport drone ship Just Read the Instructions once it safely delivers the Iridium payload into orbit. As you can see, we have lots to cover in today's webcast, and we are so excited to be back on the launch pad.
Give me a moment.
So let's get started.
Hi, I'm Michael Hammersley, a materials engineer in our avionics department. And it is an absolute gem of a day at Vandenberg Air Force Base with sapphire skies for our launch. The Falcon 9 is standing on the pad, about 70 meters tall. It's taller than a 20-story building. The smoke that you see here is totally normal. It's just the bleed off of excess cold oxygen. And it's just like if you breathe out on a cold day, that same condensation forming from the atmosphere. The first stage, which is this part, is going to power the rocket from the ground to the edge of space, about 100 kilometers up. And then it's going to return to the drone ship Just Read the Instructions, while the second stage powers the actual satellites to orbital speeds. It's about 8 kilometers per second, or 10 times the speed of a rifle bullet, while the satellites themselves are sitting just in the very top inside the fairing. There are 10 satellites in there. That fairing is big enough to hold a school bus if we wanted. Standing just next to the rocket is the transporter erector, or the strong back. That's what transports the rocket out to the pad and then stands it upright in preparation for launch. It contains quick disconnects, which transport fuel or propellant, as well as electrical power and electrical signals to and from the rocket. Those propellants, of course, are liquid oxygen and liquid kerosene, or RP1, both of which are super chilled in order to get them the densest so that the most propellant can be put inside the vehicle so that it has the most power, as we're trying to do so many things with it at once. Checkouts are proceeding normally as they have been for the past several months. Lauren's going to go into a bit more detail about the extra steps that have been taken for this particular launch. You can follow along with us on the mission using the countdown timer in the upper right-hand side of your screen.
And the thing, the bottom. Timeline. And your microphone isn't working. Or you haven't switched over microphones or something. SpaceX, you can launch rockets, but you can't do microphones.
Only our first launch of the year, but as many of you know, it's also our return to flight following an explosion during a routine fueling operation on our launch pad back on September 1st, 2016.
You're going to show a video of that?
Over the past 4 months, we've worked with officials at the FAA, the U.S. Air Force, and NASA, along with several industry experts to determine the cause of the anomaly. The investigation team concluded the explosion was due to the failure of one of the 3 composite overwrapped pressure vessels, or COPVs, inside the Falcon 9 second stage liquid oxygen tank. The COPVs store cold helium gas, which is used to maintain the rocket's tank pressure. Each COPV consists of an aluminum liner surrounded by a carbon fiber composite overwrap. The team found that oxygen likely accumulated between the liner and the overwrap and became trapped in a void created by a buckled liner. Whether through friction or pressure, this led to an ignition event and subsequent failure of the COPV. As required by the FAA in order to receive our launch license, SpaceX implemented corrective actions to address all the credible causes for this failure mode. In the short term, we changed the COPV configuration to allow warmer temperature helium to be loaded, and we returned helium loading operations to the flight-proven configuration based on operations used in more than 700 successful COPV loads. In the long term, SpaceX will implement design changes to the cold helium system, which will allow for faster loading operations and avoiding the conditions that led to the September 1st failure. We greatly appreciate the strong support of our customers and partners throughout this
whoever's controlling that camera got a bit off track there.
We look forward to getting back to launching and landing this year and beyond.
Good morning from SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. I'm John Isberger, Falcon 9 Principal Integration Engineer. I'm at the webcast desk in what we call the mezzanine, overlooking the Mission Control Center and the rest of the team that's gathering together for today's launch. We're currently at T-minus 13 minutes and 40 seconds, coming up on an instantaneous window for launch. We'll have just 1 second to launch, so it's going to be no opportunities if we have
no
to
delays.
have a hold here in the last 13 minutes. And I'll be bringing you the status updates both in the countdown and during the count up as we proceed into orbit. Now what everybody wants to know basically is how are things going? And that answer, Falcon 9 team is conducting the countdown, working no significant issues. We're
So
on
things are
schedule
good.
for an on-time launch. Now T-minus 78 minutes, we polled the team for readiness to begin loading propellants. Now that's a change from our previous timelines that you've watched us in the past year, where we have polled the team at T-minus 35 minutes and begin loading. So we began loading fuel in the first and second stage at T-minus 75 minutes. Fuel is on the second stage. We're also pretty much loaded on the first stage, except we've got to do a little topping off that'll happen in the last minutes of the countdown. Liquid oxygen loading is also underway on both stages. It's currently paused right now as we're loading the last of the helium into the storage vessels on the first and second
Which is what caused the
stage.
failure.
We're making sure we get enough mass in there so that we can accomplish today's mission. So as I said, Falcon 9 team's looking good. They're working no issues in the countdown. The Iridium satellite team, you might have heard on the countdown net, they have transitioned to internal power, working no issues. They're ready for an on-time launch. The range is working one issue right now, but they expect it'll be fixed in time. There's a ship in the danger area, but they think it'll be out of the way. And that takes us up to weather. The ground winds
They
and
think?
upper altitude winds are borderline.
That's never a
Wait for
good
the very
sign.
last balloon that should be processed right about now, but currently we are go for an on-time launch. So everything's looking good here for the Falcon 9 launch.
Hi, my name is Lauren Lyons, and I'm a system certification engineer here at
Good
SpaceX.
thing they realized
Today
that there
we're
was a
launching
problem with the
10
microphone.
Iridium Next satellites to low Earth orbit. This is our first of 7 launches that we have on contract with Iridium. Each of the 10 spacecraft that are on board right now have a mass of 600 kilograms, and when the solar arrays are fully deployed, they have a 30-foot wingspan, which equates to more or less 4 Shaquille O'Neals. These 10 satellites are positioned inside of the SpaceX
Right.
fairing and mounted onto 2 vertically stacked SpaceX-designed dispensers with 5 satellites each. Once Falcon 9 gets to the right orbit, SpaceX will send a separation signal to the dispensers, deploying the satellites one by one, 100 seconds apart at an altitude of 625 kilometers above the Earth. Once these satellites are deployed, the 10 satellites will form the beginnings of a new Iridium constellation in the sky. Each satellite will be cross-linked to 4 others in the constellation, allowing for a web of space-based communications from ground or airborne users from any location on Earth to any other place on Earth. This has applications everywhere from Coast Guard maritime communications to
That's
mobile
about
internet,
16 minutes
and even cellular
up for
communications in
deployment of
remote
all
areas
those.
without the use of ground stations. Once these 10 satellites launch today, plus the 60 that we are going to launch later on by SpaceX, this constellation will be complete, forming a network of 70 Iridium Next satellites across multiple orbital planes, providing continuous coverage over the entire Earth.
The first set of Iridium satellites
Oh,
started
wow,
launching about
that's quite a
20 years
large
ago and
venting there.
provided, among other things, worldwide satellite phone coverage. Iridium
That's to maintain
Next is
pressure,
a
I'm presuming.
second-generation constellation, and these satellites will have different and upgraded capabilities as compared with their aging brethren. Marty, one of our resident video producers, got the chance to speak with Iridium CEO Matt Desch to learn a little more about this newer constellation.
Right.
Hey there, I'm Martin Berman. I'm a video producer at SpaceX, and I'm in McLean, Virginia, at Iridium's headquarters, and I'm joined by Iridium's CEO, Matt Desch. Matt, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Marty. Good to be here.
To start, could you give us an overview of Iridium Next?
Yeah, Iridium Next is one of the largest aerospace projects that's gone on in the last 10 years, and maybe for the next many. It's 81 new satellites built and launched into space,
And to polar orbits.
program to completely replace our current generation communication network, flying in low Earth orbit, providing communications to people all over the Earth.
How are these new satellites different than the previous constellation?
So the new satellites are more powerful, they have more capacity, they're able to provide higher data speeds to our customers. Probably one of the most unique aspects about them is the fact that they offer new services that we've never created before, like the ability to track aircraft anywhere in the world in real time.
Satellite communications often go unobserved.
That's pretty
You know,
cool.
they're in space, you don't see them, you don't hear them. So how exactly do they affect your average person on the street?
Well, a couple things. I mean, first of all,
A lot
there's
of
a good
ways.
chance we'll save your life, which is a pretty important thing. If there's ever a natural disaster around the world, Iridium is the first thing on the scene. It's what first responders use. It's what police and fire and others use to
And all them.
call in help in the early hours of a crisis. So it's very important in terms of those sort of things. But increasingly, assets move across the world, ships, trucks, cars, all those things could be connected, need to be connected to optimize them. And Iridium is the best
Can do that.
technology really to do that.
The name Iridium, what's the story behind that name?
Iridium was such a unique network with low Earth orbiting satellites constantly moving around
So,
the planet. No one had ever
you wanted a unique
created
name.
a system like that, and the inventors realized it looked a lot like an atom. You know, the original design was for 7 planes of 11 satellites each, so 77 satellites, and they looked on the periodic table, and that was the precious metal iridium. And it sounds like a cool name, so they named the service Iridium. Then a year or two later,
That's pretty
in the
cool.
early 90s, they thought we could probably do this with 66 satellites by taking out a plane. They looked on the periodic table. Unfortunately, that was dysprosium, which was not a good name for a company. So they kept the name Iridium, and it's stuck, and it's been a great name ever since.
So
I
where
agree.
will you be for launch?
I'm going to be at Vandenberg Air Force Base watching it and cheering it on. I think the real action is going to be happening here in
I
Virginia.
don't know which SpaceX rocket that actually is. Maybe that's...
Center is, about
But it didn't look like it had
75%
landing
launch.
legs, did it?
Those satellites will be
may
captured.
have.
The telemetry will start flowing, and the boards will
It's
start
probably
going
Jason
green.
3.
That will be the really exciting moments when we know our babies are operating in space. Our 10 satellites have deployed successfully. The first 10 of the 70 that we'll be launching over 15 months. So that will be an exciting place. And of course, I'll be in close contact with them about that.
Matt Desch, CEO of Iridium. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Marty. Good to be with you.
In addition to today's launch being our return to flight, we're also returning to landing the Falcon 9 first stage on our autonomous spaceport drone ship. Now, SpaceX maintains
Just read the
a fleet of
instructions.
2 autonomous spaceport drone ships, one named Just Read the Instructions, and the other one
And
named
of course I still...
Love You. Of Course I Still Love You was the drone ship that we used for most of our landing attempts in 2016, including the
From
4
Cape
successful
Canaveral.
attempts back in summer of last year. However, today we're using Just Read the Instructions, which hasn't been used for a landing attempt since early 2016, which was over a year ago, meaning that if we stick the landing today, it'll be the first time that we've landed a first stage successfully on Just Read the Instructions. Now, this may be review for some of our viewers, but SpaceX is all about rapid reusability. And
Yes,
the
I
drone
know.
ships help us accomplish that goal by allowing us to recover fully intact first stages so we can refly them as soon as possible with minimal refurbishment. And this is where we're really going to be able to drive down the cost of spaceflight. Now, spaceflight has been fine-tuning this process of landing the first stages for the past few launches, and so far we've been able to recover 6 first stages, and we're already using those first stages for testing and incorporating changes into future generations of our Falcon 9 rocket. For example, one of the first stages we've been using for structural and stress testing on the ground, another one we've relit on the test stand several times to see how many times we can successfully relight it, and then one we've even put on permanent display outside our main
That's the
company
Orbcom.
headquarters in Hawthorne, California, which is viewable to the public. However, the most exciting thing we're doing with this project is reflying the first stages, which should be coming up in a mission soon. Just a really quick recap of how this is going to happen. After the first stage separates from the second stage after liftoff, the first stage is going to flip around and execute 3 burn maneuvers to get back towards Just Read the Instructions. The first one's going to be a boost back burn, which brings it back in the direction of the drone ship. The second one is a re-entry burn to slow it down. And the third one is a landing burn to get it right down onto the deck. We'll be covering all these steps just after liftoff, so stay tuned.
We're coming up on T-minus 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Everything continues to look good for an on-time launch at 54 minutes and 39 seconds after the hour. Falcon 9 team is in the last minutes of the countdown. We're now using the automated sequence with both the computers on the ground and the 2 flight computers on the first and second stage of the Falcon 9 are controlling what we call the launch auto sequence. This is the intricate steps where we're getting the ground system ready and the launch vehicle ready for the events that lead up to stopping propellant load, pressurizing the tanks in the last minute, and then igniting the Merlin engines on the first stage, making sure they're good, then commanding release from the ground systems and launching into space. Now, next major activities that you're seeing on the webcast right now is we're getting ready for retract of the strongback. What will happen is the clamps that are holding around the top of the second stage will open. The strongback will then...
They've just opened, I think.
Currently, it's what we call it the 90-degree position, straight up and down. It'll
And now it's
decline
rotating.
away from the vehicle for a couple of minutes, getting to a position of 77 degrees. That's the launch position that we need to be in so that the rocket can clear everything. Cheering from the crowd
There it
as
goes.
we approach the T-minus 3.5 minute mark, and you can see the erector moving away from the vehicle. Next major activities are going to be going into the last minute, where you'll hear us get into the last part of the auto sequence, making sure we're in the startup sequence. We'll pressurize the tanks, and then we'll light the Merlin engines, make sure we're
3 minutes until launch.
commanding release.
SpaceX launch is always getting me excited.
The Iridium satellite team, they are on internal power, working no issues. They're good to go. The range, I think we've got the ship is out of the way. Everything's looking good there. And finally, we're waiting to hear from the last weather balloons, but currently everything continues to look good for an on-time launch in just over T-minus 2.5 minutes. So with that, we're going to let everybody listen in to the last 2.5 minutes of the countdown, and we'll be back with you.
I'm excited. Great, you can see the strongback has fully retracted. This is eerily quiet at this point. But yeah, you can see that it's a Slick 4. Slick, short for Space Launch Complex, and as you can see, Earth. Yeah, yeah, you can see that you're being a bit optimistic there.
Confirm range is green.
Good, range is green. Yeah, there's the Iridium next logo on the fairing. I think if you've seen launches, I think the strongback has been extended since, say, if you watch my video of the Jason 3 launch, I think the strongback is different. It's been extended probably because this is a Falcon 9 full thrust, whereas the previous was just a Falcon 9 V1.1. And Jason 3 was a fun launch of that. And that was almost the first time they successfully landed on a drone ship. However, due to fog, one of the landing legs kind of locked. Or, no. What happened was one of the things, the lockout collet or something like that, wouldn't lock. So basically the gear was down, but not locked. So it just collapsed as the thing landed. T-minus 1 minute. Vehicles in startup. Giggity. Should be approximately 10 minutes. "40 seconds until the engine ignites and this massive rocket leaves the ground." It may not look really big when you see it through a broadcast, but it is. It is quite large. If anybody... Oh wow, it's only 20 seconds now. Christ on a bike! Yeah, but you can see that the Orbcom first stage in front of Hawthorne. SpaceX headquarters. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 2, ignition. And liftoff of the Falcon 9 carrying the first Iridium Next constellation of satellites. Oh wow, that's a lot of smoke. There she goes. She's left the ground.
GC, move section. Post launch pad operations to secure the pad on Med moving the post-launch pad operations.
And she is off.
They bring the views after.
Yeah, that might have a bit more zoom. Yep, there she goes. You can see there's a bit of fire behind the entrance, and I'm not sure what that is. But that's normal, I've seen that before. What am I looking for? Right. She's going fine. I'm not sure what this camera is. Maximum dynamic pressure is about to be experienced with the vehicle. Vehicle has passed through max Q, I'm presuming.
Falcon 9 performance is nominal as we head downrange over the Pacific Ocean, flying south from the launch site.
Good, you can see the plumes expanding there.
We're passing through the region of maximum dynamic pressure right now. This is where the high pressure of the atmosphere combines with the speed of the rocket to provide the greatest stresses on the Falcon 9.
There are a few private aircraft flying around there, and they're getting a brilliant view of this launch.
Throttle them back up as we proceed on into orbit. The major activity coming up will be main engine cutoff at T plus 2 minutes and 25 seconds. We'll
Okay, so
listen for
30
that,
seconds.
Followed shortly after by stage separation and then ignition of the second
That's
stage
going to look
engine.
bloody brilliant.
Listen in as
Then the
Falcon 9
boost back
continues
burn,
to
which in
head
this case is really just going to be to
preparing for
stop
shutdown
the
of
rockets.
first stage and stage separation and ignition of the second stage.
Although in all honesty, I'm not sure if they... And? That's what this Miko's coming up. Yep, that's a view from the vehicle. From the Falcon 9. And Miko should be scheduled to happen right now. And we have Miko, we have main engine cut off. And we have stage separation and second stage ignition. Oh, this is the first time we've gotten a live shot from the vehicle, from the first stage. You can see the RCS jets firing there to reorient the vehicle. That's the second stage firing right there. Oh, this is amazing.
Coming up on 3 minutes as we head into low Earth orbit.
So we might actually get a view of the boost back. There you go, you can see the nozzle of the second stage, the vacuum Merlin.
Sounds like the Falcon 9 first stage has successfully separated from the second stage, and the second
It looks
stage
like it too.
engine has successfully ignited. It means we're on our way to orbit.
Fairing SEP should have happened. There's the pad.
Following that awesome success, there's still a lot more to go.
No
one of the cool
shite.
things that's about to happen is we are going to begin the recovery operations, or rather the first stage flyback operations.
That's going to consist of that flip maneuver where the rocket is moving in one direction and it will actually flip itself over. Then it
And
will
fire the
begin- it will
engines.
light the engines on the back end.
So
and then
boost
we'll begin
back.
a boost back burn to bring the first stage back towards the drone ship. Next up, I think we have a re-entry burn, and that'll slow down the rocket from about 2 kilometers per second down to 1 kilometer per second. It's still really fast, but any sort of decrease
Less
in energy
fast.
that you can get in moving that direction is going to be better for.
There's a view from the
decreasing
first stage.
aerodynamic stresses on the
This is
vehicle.
something we've never seen before, I might add.
Final burn coming up just a little bit later is going to be the landing burn. That's when the first stage, right as it gets close to the deck,
I'm not sure what that is. Is that the RCS
slows
firing?
itself down, opens up its
Yeah, I
landing
think that is the
gear,
RCS
there's a
firing.
soft touchdown on the deck of the autonomous space
And
program.
boost back
And just
should
to
be...
remind you guys, this is an
I
experimental
think
second
boost back
round
has begun.
mission Today, but obviously something we all get really, really excited about here. But the primary mission is launching these satellites.
Yep, boost back has
I
begun.
believe we've already separated the fairing, and that's to get rid of the excess weight, the excess mass rather, so that for the same force you can accelerate faster. It's, again, moving at 8 kilometers per second is the final goal to be circling the Earth, which is, again, 10 times the speed of a rifle
And
bullet,
boost back
but
has
with
ended, I
as
think.
much help
Or
as
is
you
it still
can
going
get
on?
to minimize the amount
Or has it
of
only
mass that you
begun
need to
now?
accelerate
I
to
don't
the
know.
speed
I can
is
see
better.
firing of
Yeah, the
something,
fairing is
of
kind
some
of like
kind.
it's just a big windshield for the satellites. Satellites really aren't built to withstand intense aerodynamic forces.
And grid fin deploy.
Back into space.
Or
So
no,
we
just
lose
that
that
one.
fairing as soon as we get out of the atmosphere, and that's where we are right now.
Yes,
There we
and
go.
so,
Grid fins have just popped open.
You can see that the first stage grid fins are
This is going to be amazing!
powered by nitrogen thrusters, and
Even if it
they're used
explodes,
to
it's going to be
actually
lovely.
steer and guide the rocket back down to Earth.
Yeah,
They're useful both at high speeds when you're moving at
and
very
low speeds,
supersonic, and again when you're starting to move slower, but not when you're going through the transition of
yes,
the speed of
yeah,
sound.
transonic isn't good.
All right, we're going to go to John I.
We're at T plus
John
5.5
Innsbrucker.
minutes into the flight. Second stage continues.
What's that flying away there?
As we go
There's something
into
tumbling
what will be
away.
The first of two orbits, the low Earth orbit, followed by a coast phase, then a reignition of the second stage engine later on this morning to get the 10 Iridium satellites into their final orbit.
Right, re-entry
Now,
should
currently,
begin
you
shortly.
can see the nozzle. Well, you can't see the nozzle of the second stage because we're showing you the first stage right now. Grid fins are deployed. We're coming
There's
up
the nozzle.
on the next first stage event, which will be in about 17 seconds, which is
The entry
beginning
burn.
of the entry burn, which will then be followed shortly after that by the landing burn.
Which should
On
be
the right, you
amazing.
can see the second stage engine nozzle. That's currently glowing red. That's typical for the upper stage engine.
Because
Everything's
temperature.
looking good right now. Give me a second. Let me see how things are going on the first stage.
There it is. And entry burn has begun.
We have boost back burn.
That's not the boost back, mate. That's the entry.
Applause in the background from the SpaceX team gathered around the Mission Control Center. As we're
The plasma
watching
also acts as a
three
bit of a
Merlin
heat shield.
engines on the first stage light.
There. I think, yeah, that's just read the instruction right there, I
Boost
think.
back burn. So currently we're coming up on T plus 7 minutes. Second stage continues to
Oh,
head into
oh, oh,
orbit.
oh,
First
oh,
stage
oh,
is
oh,
coming
oh.
back to the drone ship. Let's go bound to the
Where's the
moon
drone
to
ship?
the landing
I think that may be the
entry
drone
into
ship there.
orbit of the second stage.
Forget. Oh no, that's just a cloud.
So as you just saw, the re-entry burn for the first stage has just completed and looks successful. You can still see camera footage from the first stage descending down. Hopefully we'll be able to maintain video all
There's a bit of a shockwave there, so I think the vehicle's going transonic.
Now, so as you know, sometimes we lose that video in the drone ship. There's a lot of vibrations happening there. We're going to try our best to keep that link, and hopefully, once that landing burn hits, we'll catch it, we'll see it visually, and if all goes well, Falcon 9 will be standing proud there on the
It
deck.
spins, it spins.
You may have noticed little puffs of what looked like smoke coming out from.
That's the RCS, I know.
Everyone's-
And landing burn has begun.
The attitude control system.
Okay, that's a single Merlin firing. Oh wow.
Burn has just started, so we should be coming right down on the deck of Just Read the Instructions.
This
There's
is
just read the
slower
instructions.
landing burn, so it's a slower decrease in speed.
It's off. It looks off. Oh, never mind. It's coming on. And we've lost video. No, it's back. Landing legs are down. And okay, we've lost it. They did it! They've done it yet again. The first stage of the Falcon 9 sitting happily right slap bang on the center. X marks the spot.
Let's read the instructions from West Coast drone ship. This is fantastic.
Indeed.
Landing on Just Read the Instructions. And the first time we've attempted anything on it for over a year, so we're all very happy. Now we have two drone ships that have both successfully received first aid.
Wibble wobble.
We can see it the entire way there. No video cut out, so props to our team for making that work.
Yeah, exactly. There were a few cuts, but yeah, that was pretty good.
Now, amidst all the excitement, it's important to remember this is not the primary part of the mission. The Iridium mission. Let's go up to John I to hear what the status of that is.
Right, second stage engine
9
cut off.
minutes and 14 seconds, and we have just shut down the second stage engine. Falcon 9 second stage carrying 10 Iridium satellites has gone into the parking orbit. You also heard the cheering, and you saw as we actually saw the first stage
There you go.
come all the way back to the drone ship. Didn't have the video drop out
Yes.
like we've had in the past, so it was an amazing ride with the first stage. For the
Indeed.
moment, we're going to pause for a second, give you the view there of the engine while we take a look at how the orbit is for the second stage.
Great. You know what, guys? Since Seco 1 has just occurred and there's nothing going to be happening for a while, I'm going to pause the video here and I'll see you
And
guys.
the answer is it looks like
Right.
we've got a good parking orbit for the
Good.
Falcon 9 second stage. We're into a coast period now that's going to last up until about T plus 52 and a half minutes. So in essence, about
So 40
42
minutes.
from now before we
Okay then, guys, so I'll
the
pause this
second
video
stage.
here.
So currently, it's been a great morning so far, but the payoff is still yet to come. We're going to continue the webcast through the deployment of the Iridium satellites But the team's going to drop off for the moment. We'll leave you with the animation graphics, and we'll come back as we get ready for the relight of the second stage engine coming up in about 42 minutes from now. So with that, Falcon 9 first stage is back on the drone ship. We had a great ride there. Second stage, a great ride into the parking orbit with 10 Iridium satellites on top. And now we're waiting to see as we go through the rest of the morning here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California.
So yeah, see you guys for deployment.
Southeastern tip of Africa as we're coming up on the second burn of the upper stage engine. We're currently pressurizing the stage, settling the propellants down near the engine, and in about 10 seconds or so we should have ignition. So we're going to listen in right now for a very short burn, just a few seconds, of the upper stage engine.
The deck shut down.
Okay, we've had the short burn of the upper stage engine. We'll take a minute now and wait to hear from the guidance team how the orbit looks. It looks like, John Isberg again, I haven't heard the call out, but a look at the telemetry display. Looks like we've got a good orbit for putting the second stage into. This will now initiate the beginning of a lengthy sequence where we're separating the 10 Iridium satellites from the SpaceX dispenser that's mounted up on top of the second stage. Now we're about 7 minutes away from that sequence, and we're going to attempt to bring you the separation of the satellites. In some cases, given where the ground stations are, we may or may not be able to confirm a deployment of the satellite. We'll see if possibly we've got video signal. At the same time, we'll also be looking for just telemetry to confirm the satellite's deployed. But as I mentioned, in some cases, we may not be able to confirm that. We do also know that the 10th satellite will deploy out of range of a ground station, but hang in there with us on the webcast. After the 9th satellite, possibly about 15 minutes after that, we'll know whether or not the 10th satellite is deployed as we replay data as we pass over an Alaskan ground station. So with that, we're listening right now to a call out on one of the nets. The orbit is confirmed, is looking good. So as I said, we're going to go back to the graphic. We had a very short burn of the second stage engine, which was as we planned. That raised the orbit up to about 625 kilometers circular altitude. We're in a good inclination. We're where we want to be. So now we're going to wait for the clock just to run, and then we'll come back to you with coverage of the deployment of the first of the 10 Iridium satellites. So come back to us in just a short while, but we're going to keep the webcast running for you. Back with you here on the webcast. We're waiting for confirmation of the first of the 10 Iridium satellite deployments. Just want to let you know we're riding along with you, waiting to hear the call out. And we've got confirmation, at least in telemetry. We don't have video from the second stage, but we've got confirmation in telemetry that the separation signal was sent, and we've got a disconnect indicated, which means that the first of the 10 Iridium satellites should have successfully deployed off of the dispenser stack from the second stage. Now, currently, the plan is every 100 seconds, we'll step through a sequence that deploys the satellites. There are 2 stacks of satellites, 5 in an upper tier, 5 in a lower tier. So as we possibly get video from the deployment orbit from the Falcon 9, you might be able to see some of the satellites others on the far side of the dispenser we would not be able to see, as they won't be in the field of view of the camera. So we're going to continue to listen in and come back to you as we have confirmation of additional deployments. Back with you on the webcast. We're at T plus 1 hour and 5 minutes. For everybody who's doing the math, the 100 seconds between the first and second satellite deployment has now counted down. However, we're in a gap right now between ground station coverage, so we're not able to confirm yet via telemetry that the second of the 10 Iridium satellites has deployed. We'll come back to you on the webcast when we've got some information. I want to give you a status right now for those who are wondering why the long pause in reporting the second satellite deployment. So we'll be back with you shortly once we've got telemetry back from outer space. Studios here in SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. We're giving you an update. From what we know, the Falcon 9 and the Iridium satellites are fine. However, we have not been able to confirm satellite deployments after the first satellite due to a problem with the ground station. We understand there's a controller issue in the ground station, so we're not getting our telemetry back. However, we do record the telemetry on board the second stage, and we plan to play that back coming up in about 10 minutes. So what we're going to do is we'll keep the webcast going, but it'll probably take us about 10 minutes before we start to get telemetry from our next scheduled ground station. So then we might have a batch confirmation that the remaining satellites have deployed. So we'll come back to you in about 10 minutes, so hang in there with us as we wait to see the end of this great day so far for SpaceX, the Iridium team, and the Falcon 9 launch. Okay, on the webcast, we're at T plus 1 hour, 17 minutes, and 54 seconds, and we've got good news. We've just established contact over our next ground station, and what we've got is successful deployment indicated of all 10 Iridium satellites from the Falcon 9 second stage. So it's a clean sweep, 10 for 10. All the bridge wires show open, and that is a conclusion of the primary mission today. A great one, first stage, second stage, and the customer satellites deployed into a good orbit. So with that, let's turn it over to the team downstairs outside of Mission Control Center.
Overall, we had a wonderfully nominal mission, which is just the way we like it. We had a successful countdown. We launched at the instantaneous window that we were allotted first thing, well, not first thing this morning, but at around 10 a.m. this morning. We separated cleanly, brought the first stage back, landed it, brought you live video that didn't cut out the whole way through. Second stage powered through a coast, a second burn, and then we had successful deployment of all 10 satellites.
We would like to thank the range for their support for this launch today, including the Iridium customer. Thank you guys for all your support and for a successful mission. And to all of the SpaceXers for this powerful push to this return to flight. What an awesome way to start the new year.
for future updates, make sure to follow our Facebook and our Twitter feed. And if you're interested in being part of the team that creates these amazing rocket launches and landings, make sure to check out www.spacex.com/careers and apply to be part of the team.
He's got legs.
Can anybody get in on this party?